Is investment cheating? That's what I want to talk to you about today. Welcome to the Manc Entrepreneur YouTube channel, and this is a question which I get asked about a lot when it comes to investment in your business or in your app or whatever it is that you're trying to do online. Should I be looking for investment? So when it comes to building your business or your app or whatever it may be, there's two main ways you can go. The first one is bootstrapping, which is what I did my first business, and that is basically invest your own money or your own time, and importantly, keep control of the business. You basically hold on to the equity that you are creating. And number two is investment, and that is you ask someone else, you sort of pitch a business plan to an investor, someone with a boatload of money, and you try and get them to buy into you and your idea, and they will pay you some money up front in exchange for a share of your business, or equity as it is called. So the question of, is investment cheating? Now, to clarify this, there are perhaps 5 or 10% of all online businesses, that's specifically what I know about, and apps, say for example, that will require investment. There's no way around it. There are a small percentage of businesses out there which would not survive without investment upfront due to the scale and the size of the development usually that is needed to make it work. I used to work for a startup down in Shoreditch in London. They're still going, they're fantastic, growing very quickly, but that was such a monster of a startup. And they won awards. I'm not taking anything against them. These guys won awards, and they were doing something really unique, very clever. But the development behind it and the databases and the lookups that they have to do, it needed a team of people in order to build this. Otherwise, it would still probably be being built now with like one or two guys. It needed a team of people. When I worked there was 40 or 50 people, and yeah, it was still very much in a sort of development phase. That would not have worked without investment. However, most other businesses will work without investment, and this comes down to the time versus money piece. It's usually when I see people who have this great idea about a business that they want to start, they're not thinking long term, they're thinking short term. So they're thinking, I'll go and get investment, I'll get a chunk of money up front, and this is how I'll spend it, and hopefully by the end of it we'll have a profitable business and blah blah blah, happy days. However, that same business will probably still work if you just threw a lot of time and effort at it, and it might take slightly longer. If you're just throwing time at it. With money you can hire people and you can time hack, and I'll talk about that in another video. However, when it comes to, it's almost laziness. It's lazy entrepreneurship, or it's just a case of not believing that much in what your idea is. For example, if you had a great idea which you wanted to start and you want to build this business, and the last thing that you'd want to do is give away part of that ownership. Sometimes I've seen people sell, or take on investment for up to 50% of a business. You're giving away half of your business in exchange for a lump of money up front, which, let's be honest, you can't value a business properly if it's not started yet. So let's run a very basic sort of, example. In example 1, we start a business, and within quite 2 years the business is doing 100,000 turnover a year. We'll say it's working at a profit of half. So at the end of the year the business has 50,000 in profit. Now, as a director, as the shareholder in that business, that profit can either be reinvested into the business, or for the sake of this example, we're going to treat it as a dividend. So that you, as the company owner, can take £50,000 as a dividend. Happy days. So there we go. Now in example 2, we're going to use the same scenario, 100,000 turnover after 2 years, which is 50,000 profit again, but this time we'll use the example that you took, say, 30 grand startup money at the beginning for 50,000, for 50% of your business. Now, what that means is that some other person somewhere who initially believed in you enough to give you a chunk of money now owns half of your business, which now means that if you're still 50% shareholder, or 49, 51, whatever it might be, you're now getting £25,000 a year. You're now £25,000 worse off than if you would have just invested that money in, if you just invested time in the short term. Now, granted, it might take you a little bit longer in reality, but this is where it gets interesting, because let's assume that the business doesn't grow and it just stays quite happy at 100,000 turnover for 5 years. So, it's very unusual. Most businesses, you will see growth and you'll be working on them in order to grow them. But for the sake of simplicity, we're going to keep it this simple. So 100,000 in example 1, you're the sole owner, you invested lots of time, and you are pulling in 50,000 a year profit. So within 5 years, it stands to reason, you will have £250,000 after the 5 years. In example 2, you obviously own half of that money, so you are only getting £125,000 a year, a difference of £125,000 for something that in the beginning you might have only, you might have taken on £10,000 investment or £30,000 investment. Is that really worth £125,000 later on? If you would have just worked that little bit harder, invested more time, had a little bit of a cutback on your social life, on your lifestyle, stopped going to as many parties or as many social events, maybe not gone on as many holidays. And it really is, when you put it in numbers, for me, investment is not only cheating, it's almost shooting yourself in the foot. If you really believe that your business cannot, obviously every business can fail, but if you believe that there's a 95% chance that your business will succeed and you're willing to the market and you're willing to bet on yourself, why would you want to risk £125,000 for a year of hardship, maybe a little bit more, in order to get it going in the first place? It's lazy entrepreneurship, and that's why I think investment is cheating, and a true entrepreneur would not take investment unless it was 100% necessary. And like I said, in my opinion, in about 90% of cases, it is not 100% necessary. So I'd love to know what you think. Do you disagree with me on this? Please let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on investment in general. I know Dragon's Den, and there's a show on Shark Tank, I think, in America. I'd love to know what your thoughts on those. Is that something you would consider for your business? I know it's great exposure, but ultimately, equity is what matters as a business owner. You have the shareholder, you own, it's what you own. Are you willing to give away something that you believed in and working so hard? Are you going to give away half of it or a chunk of it in order for a little bit of money up front to make your life slightly easier? I know I wouldn't. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful. If you have, please hit the like button below, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.